All right, our liquid latex is completely dry. One thing I'm gonna do for a second, no, I was just gonna see if any of that charcoal was exposed, and if it was, rub it off, but it's all covered within the masking fluid, but that's okay. That's okay. What we are gonna do, we're gonna do our first alcohol ink layer, and then when that is completely dry, we're gonna remove all of this, and then I will rub it off before going to our next step. So I'm just adding a little bit of alcohol ink. I also have some 99% isopropyl alcohol here that I'm going to use to help it to flow. And this is all about building the layers. So I have an alcohol ink blower here that we're using to blow it out. If you have an air compressor, you could use that. You could use an empty bottle. I've tried using just an empty bottle from the dollar store before, and it works. The only thing is it doesn't reinflate quite as well as this alcohol ink blower does. So I'm starting with my lightest blue. So this is aqua, and I'm just blowing it all the way out. And like I said before, we're gonna have 3 layers here. So as the layers progress, I'm gonna go just a little bit darker. But even in this one, I am gonna add some of the dark. So the darker, or the medium color, is Mermaid. And I want a combination of the two. And I will tend to just put dots of the color and then drops of my isopropyl right on top of it to help it to flow. You kind of get into a routine of what works best for you. You may find that it works best for you to put some isopropyl down first and then blow it out, or to put the ink and then blow it out. Now the one thing to keep in mind is we use masking fluid on the edge here, so it's not going to run into our white over here. If by chance you had a Cricut or have a Cricut and chose to create an SVG and cut it on your Cricut, when you put removable vinyl on here, you're going to want to paint the edges by that removable vinyl with our primer. On my YouTube channel, there is a video, I think it's called Vancouver Island Feather, where I die cut the shape of Vancouver Island and then created a feather art piece with it. But what I did was used removable vinyl, same primer. I did it on canvas, and then before adding the alcohol ink, I used the primer and painted all around the edges so that it wouldn't seep underneath. So just a little hint if you happen to be choosing to use vinyl as your stencil. All right, I think I pretty much am good with my first layer here. I want to have a little bit more light, and by light I mean the light color coming through here. And that isopropyl is just going to help it to blend out. You could use blending solution for this as well. Isopropyl alcohol works just as well, and it's a lot cheaper, so I tend to use the isopropyl. The other thing with the isopropyl, it'll lighten your alcohol ink colors. So if you have an area that's a little bit too dark, you can add the isopropyl. Like for instance, say this, I don't find it too dark, but if I did add the isopropyl and then blow it out just to lighten it a little bit. And I left my edges bare so that the ink could flow down there. I don't mind that. If that bothers you, you could mask it with either some liquid latex or some painter's tape. You'd have a better chance of completely covering it with the liquid latex though. And if you want your color to stay dark in an area, don't add the isopropyl. I do want it to be darker right on this edge. And it is going to get darker because we're going to add more layers to it. But I just want to make sure we have a clear edge here before going to the next layer. And then any areas that you find are a little bit on the dark side, just add some isopropyl and blow them out. The fun part about isopropyl with alcohol inks is sometimes you get different colors in there. So this is more of a blue-green, but when I did that last one there, all of a sudden we get some blue in there. So it's kind of fun to see what colors come out. And then right here, I'm getting some green. One of the things that I find fascinating about it. And as you can see, the last couple times I haven't been using any alcohol ink. I'm only using the isopropyl, and I'm just blowing some of the colors out to make them a little bit lighter. There we go. So I like that the way it is. I'm going to let that completely dry, and with alcohol inks it really doesn't take very long. Alcohol dissipates quite quickly. So once it's completely dry, we're going to remove the tape and we're going to remove the liquid latex. All right, the alcohol ink is pretty much dry and I am clearly impatient. So I am going to pull my tape and my liquid latex off. Now you can see I got some seepage there with my tape. What I'm going to do there is I am going to use a little bit of isopropyl and lighten it as much as possible, and then I'm going to use my primer and put another coat on there. Just touch it up a little bit. It's going to be encased in the layers of resin, so we're not going to necessarily see a touched up area there, but by taking the isopropyl and bleaching it out a little bit, it's going to help cover it a little bit. So it will stain it slightly, whoops, but it should be fixed. And I can see I just messed that up area right there. So you have to be careful with the isopropyl alcohol. I shouldn't have done two areas at one time. I should just work on one and focus on it. So I'm just dabbing up right in there. I'm going to put some isopropyl alcohol on my paper towel. All right, so I'm going to stop messing with this because I'm clearly making it worse by adding more isopropyl alcohol, but it's good to know how to fix things. So I am going to just touch up there with my primer, and I'm going to use my, where's the wet thing here, and just get rid of some of my charcoal there. Before we go to the next step and add our resin, I need to put a couple light coats of the Camara varnish and then a couple light coats of the UV resistant spray to protect it from the light. Now this Camara has to go first, and only light coats will work. If you douse it with heavy coats, it will affect the alcohol ink and it will start to move it, and it will might be a cool effect, but probably not. So light coats, let them dry in between your coats, and then like I said, a little bit of UV resist. You have to wait 24 hours after spraying it with those sprays because you need to let all of the chemicals dissipate from it, otherwise it will affect your resin cure and you will likely get fish eyes.